Ever notice how some ideas make you go, huh, at first, but then really get you thinking? Today, we're tackling two of those: phallus shrinking and the religion of phallic woman.
Definitely attention grabbing.
Oh, for sure. But don't worry, we're going deep on what these ideas really mean. We're talking hidden power dynamics, how we see each other in relationships, even how we try to complete one another without realizing it.
It's like holding up a mirror to these age-old questions about power, relationships, identity. Super fascinating stuff.
Absolutely. And we're going way back to trace these ideas, starting with a word you might not expect.
Shrink. Not therapy just yet. Think even further back. Head shrinking.
Whoa, okay, now that's an image. You're talking like actual shrunken heads.
Exactly. Some cultures, like in parts of Latin America, they did this. Believed it captured an enemy's power.
Intense. You can see how that desire to control, it's a very human thing. But how do we go from that to, well, the other kind of shrinking?
Fast forward to the 1900s, suddenly it's all about the ego shrinker. But even that's got two sides.
Oh, I see this already. There's the shrink to fit inside.
Right, therapy helps you adapt, so to speak.
But then there's the whole shrink the expectations, be your true self angle.
Exactly. Find your authentic self. Two sides of the same coin, kind of.
And isn't that relatable? That pressure to fit in but also stand out brings us to our main topic: phallus shrinking. So how does this even apply to gender and power?
Think of it like this. It challenges the traditional power structures head on.
Okay, so not literally shrinking anything.
Nope. More about how phallic often represents dominance and how we can dismantle those systems where that plays out.
So challenging those ingrained ideas, how they show up in sneaky ways. Any real-life examples of this phallus shrinking happening?
Absolutely. Intimacy coordinators on film sets. That's a prime example.
Oh, interesting. Because their whole job is making sure everyone feels safe, respected during intimate scenes.
Right. Historically, that hasn't always been the case.
Oh,
So it's like phallus shrinking in action, changing how we handle those situations.
makes you think where else this power dynamic pops up. But is it about real equality, or are we just reshaping the same power structures and what happens then, intentionally or not?
Yeah, those are the million-dollar questions, right? And it gets even trickier when we bring in this idea of the phallic woman.
Oh, tell me about it. That's a term that definitely makes you scratch your head a bit. To really get into it, gotta share this analogy. It might seem a little out there, but stick with me.
Oh boy, I think I know this one. Go on.
Okay, so picture this. Little boy playing doctor with himself, like kids do. His sister's watching, and she's got that look in her eye like, hey, how come he gets to...
Classic sibling rivalry.
Exactly. So the mom, trying to be fair, she tells the boy, all right, enough of that. Time to give it to your sister. Let her have a turn.
Ah, yes, the give it to her dilemma. Hilarious on the surface, but it gets to the heart of this phallic woman paradox.
Right, because by saying give it to her, whatever that it even is, we're kind of reinforcing the very power dynamic we're supposed to be breaking down.
Totally. It's like we're saying, here's this thing, this traditionally masculine thing, now you're complete.
Instead of recognizing what's already there, what's valuable on its own terms.
Exactly. Like women need something external, something male-defined to be whole. And what's even more interesting is how that something that it changes with the time.
Oh, for sure. Like goalposts are always moving. It used to be marriage, kids, now it's career, independence.
Right. But it's still tied to this idea of what men have defined as success or power.
Which brings us to the religion of phallic women idea.
Okay, break that down for me. What are we talking about here?
It suggests that, without realizing it, men are driven to complete women by providing these like symbolic phalluses, whatever they happen to be in that moment.
Not necessarily on purpose, but it's like this societal pattern playing out.
Fair enough.
Exactly. We're stuck in this web of expectations, these perceived lacks, always trying to fix something instead of appreciating what is. And it gets even more complex when you look at people who actively challenge these dynamics, like Joss Whedon or J.K. Rowling, for example.
Right. It's almost ironic. You have these creators famous for writing strong female characters, Buffy, Hermione, but then they still face so much backlash.
It highlights how tricky this whole phallus thing gets within the religion of phallic woman framework.
Yeah.
What one generation finds empowering, another might see as problematic. It's constantly evolving.
It's like they can't win, almost. Trying to do the right thing, showing strong women, but still not enough.
Yeah, and that's the thing about this whole phallus idea, right? It's like what's empowering in one context, it can totally flip in another.
So we're talking about Whedon. Later on, people criticized how he wrote some female characters' relationships, the power dynamics there. And Rowling, well, her stance on certain issues, that really blew up.
Definitely sparked a lot of debate.
And it's like they tried to empower women through their work, but they were still being judged against this impossible standard that's always changing.
It all goes back to that phallic mother idea we talked about. It's a tough one to unpack. On the one hand, you've got this figure who's supposed to embody both traditional masculine and feminine power, like having it all, right? But it just shows you can't ever really satisfy that lack, that perception of something missing. Because real equality isn't about filling some void.
It's more about dismantling the whole system that creates that void in the first place.
Exactly.
So when we talk about phallus shrinking, it's way bigger than just like men versus women.
Oh yeah, much broader than that. It's about recognizing those power structures everywhere, in all their sneaky forms.
And being honest with ourselves about, like, what do we value? What do we see as powerful?
Right. And are we trying to grab that for ourselves, give it to others? Because that just keeps the cycle going, you know?
Instead of breaking free from it completely.
Big questions, right?
Yeah.
But that's the whole point.
So are we aiming for equality? Or are we kind of stuck in this loop of envy, always looking for external validation, like someone else need to define what's valuable, and we're chasing after it?
It's easy to fall into that trap. I think that's something we all grapple with, honestly.
Definitely gives you a lot to think about. Does focusing on shrinking something really get to the root of the problem? Or does it just keep this resentment, this competition going? Makes it harder to see each other for who we really are.
That's what I keep coming back to. It's about shifting that perspective.
Yeah, those deep-seated beliefs about power, about worth.
And that's tough work. No easy answers.
Absolutely. But hey, that's what we're here for, right? To dig into these ideas. So as you go about your day, just notice those power dynamics topping up. Are we lifting each other up? Or are we stuck in that give and take game? Something to ponder. It's been a deep dive into some seriously thought-provoking stuff, and I hope you've walked away with some new perspectives. More importantly, I hope sparked even more questions for you. Till next time, keep those conversations going, keep questioning, and thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.